Thought I'd do a little follow-up video on the FX K501r engine. This is my associated Truggy. It's the RC8 T3.1. It was new in the spring. When I built the truck, I put this engine in. I didn't take the engine apart at all. I didn't even take the back plate off. I just broke it in on the bench, heat cycle method, put it in the truck, and raced it. I raced our Minnesota Nitro Series. I raced 6 races. Was learning the truck because the truck was new to me this year. Ended up changing the truck and got that to my liking better over the summer, and towards the end it was competitive. Had to go in a few B mains because I was actually too light on the shock oil and springs on the truck. So, and then the engine was flawless all summer. I didn't flame out. I got good mileage. I normally after a heat race we run 6-minute quals with the hot loops, so come in at about a minute before the timer starts, fuel up, so you got maybe a lap or 45 seconds before the tone goes off, and then your 6 minutes plus finishing your lap. And most times I'm at least at the tank seam with the fuel. So I know 10 minutes is pretty easily doable. I just don't like running out of fuel, so a lot of times I'll just pit at 9 minutes, or there was one time, at least that I remember, I went to 10 because I started second in the B main, I believe, right up front anyways, first or second in the B main. A guy tried jumping a quad that really wasn't doable with the Truggy. The guys with buggies were having trouble with it, and I landed on top of me. I ended up 12th after that first section, and I think 7 minutes in, I was thinking about pitting 7-8 minutes. I thought, well, I'm just going to push 10 because I got to make up some time here. I pitted at 10s, ended up bumping. We'd bumped 3, so I bumped to the A. I don't remember exactly what I finished in the A, but I think it was like a 7th or something in the A. So we run half-hour long mains. So this engine has, I changed the glow plug like one time. I never took it apart, never replaced the front bearing or anything. So I got basically at least 6 half-hour mains on it. One was rained out, but the one I had to bump from the B, so it was about 6 half-hour long mains. Qualifiers, three 6-minute qualifiers, plus practice. I got quite a bit of time on this engine. Pinch is still pretty good. It doesn't need a pinch right now. I'll take it apart here, take it out, mic the crank, and see what we got for wear. I'm curious on how much crank wear we got on just a season of racing. The pipe I use is it's the A+ 0801, which is Alpha had them for sale. The 0801's been around quite a while. It's been one of my go-to pipes. So I didn't really try many pipes on it because I knew this one worked on other engines and stuff. So this one's got a good bottom end, pretty good top end. It's good and crisp, and it gets pretty good mileage. So that's why I just kept this one on it. So I'm going to take the engine out, take it apart, and then we'll see what we get for measurements. I'll show the insides of it. Hi, Rex Welch here at RW Mods today. On the second part of my review of the FX K501r, I got the engine out of the truck. Got it mostly torn down. Like I said, it hadn't been taken apart at all. Didn't replace the front bearing at all. So I'm gonna just finish taking it apart here. Put the pinion, I'll take off the head button first here. Okay, then I'm gonna take the back plate out, put the piston up. And take the sleeve out. Don't use anything metal when you're taking the sleeve out. Zip tie usually works pretty well. This is a little plastic tool I made. just hooks the exhaust port. Lifts it when you turn it. Just put a 3mm screw in. Okay, so I'm interested in how much crank pin wear we have on this engine. The combustion chamber, it looks a little black to me, but the engine ran pretty well. There's a nice coat of oil on there on everything. I used Bones Brew 9, was it 8%? And it's been pretty good. I don't use after run, just change filters. Some fuel manufacturers put a rust preventative in them. I know Byron's, I ran that before, Sidewinder, and this Bones Brew for sure is ones I've used, and I never really have much of a rust problem. The isn't any rust in the bearing there or anything. Feels good and smooth. So looking at the piston top, yeah, there's some carbon on there, but I mean overall piston looks good. Yeah, the piston looks good. It actually still had, if I clean it off here, actually still does have some pinch at the top. Everything's a little bit dirty here now, it's hard to tell, but it actually did have some resistance at the top after running it all summer. This is how I check the crank pins. I just usually about 196 thousandths, and then it'll always wear on one side, on the thrust side. So as the crank's spinning here, it'll wear as the rod's pushing it here, it'll wear on just this side usually. So you measure it in a few spots around, and I'm about 196. And in one spot, it's maybe get that a little bit better in the picture here. So I'm getting maybe about not even a half thousandths wear. Trying to get, yeah, I'm getting maybe 3 to 4 tenths wear. Maybe check it out towards the end here a little bit more towards the end, but that is really good for running it. I figure I have about 6 hours on the engine. That's just qualifying and mains plus practice. I don't know how many gallons that is because we run the buggy too, so it's hard to kind of see here. So I have a bore gauge here, and maybe get the reading, and then I slide in there and then kind of turn it. Kind of hard to hold everything. So not really getting, again, that the rod will wear on the top side of the bushing. I'm really not seeing, you see that move around a little bit, but that's just me sliding it in there. So when it comes to 0 there, and I turn it, I'm getting like no rod wear at all on the bushing. Like I said, it'll wear on the top side on the wear side as it thrusts down. That is really impressive for the amount of time I have on this engine. I keep up my filters, but I'm not changing them. I mean, you saw before, I mean, the inner filter looked pretty good, but I'm not changing them every race if they don't look terrible and stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty impressed with this crank pin wear, because I think, you know, being FX is a pretty good company. Their X-Ray is known for some pretty good steels in their car kits and everything. So this is a pretty good hard steel in this crank, and that makes a big difference on how much it wears. So another thing I want to touch on too is I'm running the associated clutch. I ran low-C clutches for years too, and these pretty much use the same shoe as the low-C did, and I always run 2 carbon and 2 aluminum on the low-Cs. And you can see I've got all summer on this, and that didn't even wear across the face. When you use a carbon and the aluminum mixed, they last a lot longer. The carbon kind of lubricates a little bit, but it doesn't slip. You won't notice. You might notice a grabbiness if you go to all 4 aluminum, because they'll gall up and they'll kind of leave deposit on the clutch bell, and it'll actually kind of just lock to the clutch bell. But this is the way to go. If you're on a 3-shoe, use 1 carbon, like on a Kyosho or whatever setup. But I mean, I've got what I say 6 plus hours on this clutch, and that's the original shoes. And then I use the TKO special radial thrust bearing clutch bearings, and I'll replace them even when they don't feel like they need to be replaced. But they are, for $3 each, they're really, I haven't had one fail really. And sometimes if they feel really good, I'll be basically run 2 race weekends on them if they feel really good. So you can get, I mean, I've seen 3 to 4 gallons on clutch bearings. It also makes a difference too. Your engine has to be lined up straight. If your engine is crooked in the car, you're going to put more thrust on the clutch bell. So your spur gear and your engine need to be lined up straight. So if they're crooked, it's going to put thrust either forward or backwards on that, and it's going to be harder on the bearings. So you want to make sure your engine is lined up straight. TLR used to have a line on their chassis. So everything looks pretty good on this. I'm really impressed with the little bit of wear on this. That is, I mean, I've seen some engines, like a cheaper engine, have that much wear after a gallon, or even after break-in. So it's really impressive. Kept its pinch all summer. I didn't have to pinch it, didn't do anything. Now this engine, I usually on my rebuilds, I'm going to go do a video on kind of what I do on a rebuild, but I'm just going to rebuild this, replace the front bearing. I don't know, I could maybe go with the ceramic rear since I got it, since I have it apart, but really impressed with this engine and how well it tuned all summer. Didn't really have to change it much. Good mileage, good wear, obviously. So yeah, this engine for just over $200 is definitely one of the better engines I've worked with. Thank you. Thanks for watching.